Assalamu alaikum everyone, and iyi akşamlar, good evening from Istanbul, Turkey. Welcome everyone to SIGA's annual UMA conference. SIGA is Center for Islam and Global Affairs. This evening we have a wonderful program with a very talented panel and a excellent, well-qualified moderator. Our moderator tonight is Dr. Jonathan Brown of Georgetown University. He's the al-Walid bin Talal Chair and Professor of Islamic Civilization in the School of Foreign Service at Georgetown University. He's the former director of the al-Walid bin Talal Center for Muslim Christian Understanding. Dr. Brown received his BA in History from Georgetown University in 2000 and his doctorate in Near Eastern Languages and Civilizations from the University of Chicago in 2006. Dr. Brown has studied and conducted research in many countries, including Egypt, Syria, Turkey, Morocco, Saudi Arabia, Yemen, South Africa, India, Indonesia, and Iran. His book publications include The Canonization of al-Bukhari and Muslim, The Formation and Function of the Sunni Hadith Canon, Hadith Muhammad's Legacy in the Medieval and Modern World, Muhammad, a very short introduction, which was selected for a National Endowment for the Humanities Bridging Cultures bookshelf. He's also the author of Misquoting Muhammad, The Challenges and Choices of Interpreting the Prophet's Legacy. This book was named as a top book of religion in 2014 by The Independent. His latest book is Slavery and Islam. He's published many articles in the fields of Hadith, Islamic law, Salafism, Sufism, Arabic lexical theory, and pre-Islamic poetry. He's currently editor-in-chief of the Oxford Encyclopedia of Islam and Law, and Dr. Brown's current research interests include Islamic legal reform and a translation of Sahih al-Bukhari. From a personal level, I can tell you our moderator tonight is very funny. If you don't like academic papers or conferences, Jonathan Brown might bring you back to the world of academia. I can also tell you, Dr. Brown, every year I keep making the mistake thinking that you're a lawyer, because as I read your papers, the legal analysis is very precise, very legalistic. So if I have authority to give you an honorary law degree, I'll give it to you. For the moment, you're the historian and Islamic scholar. The floor is yours. Everybody have fun.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Hello. I guess I should be happy. Someone thinks I'm funny and should be a lawyer, which is, I guess, two big compliments. At least the first one is. Thanks a lot for inviting me, and I'm happy to be here. We have about 2 hours for what I think is going to be a terrific panel on good governance, defining the paradigm, exploring the challenges. We have Dr. Saifeldin Abdelfattah, Dr. Louay Safi, and Dr. Gülnur Aybet. And each one will speak for about 22 minutes. You know, that's the maximum. And then we'll have time for question and answer afterwards. So I'll give you the speakers' bios right now, and then I'll just give you their topics before they speak. Also, the first speaker will be in Arabic, and for this whole panel, there's both Arabic and English translation, which is somehow available using Zoom buttons. You'll have to figure that on your own. Okay, first we have Dr. Saifeldin Abdelfattah, who obtained his PhD in 1987 in political theory and Islamic political thought from Cairo University. He's held many academic positions, including as a professor at the Faculty of Economics and Political Science at Cairo University. He also served as the head of the Center for Political Studies at Cairo University. Since 2016, he's been serving as the Dean of Faculty of Political Science at the International Tajdeed University in Istanbul. He has been a visiting scholar at many universities around the world, including American University, Maryland, Free University of Berlin, Doha Institute and many others. He's also contributed as a consultant, faculty member, and referee to several Arab and international academic institutions, such as the International Institute for Islamic Thought, the University of Islamic and Social Sciences in Virginia. In August 2012, Dr. Abdelfattah served as the advisor to the President of Egypt for political affairs. He's published in the field of political theory and Islamic political thought. He's published more than 15 books. In addition, he's published many works in Arabic newspapers, contributed to Arabic newspapers, journals, and media outlets. Amongst his most prominent books are Political Renewal in Contemporary Arab Reality and Islamic Vision, Building Standards, Islamic Political Heritage and Measuring Corruption, the Ibn Khaldun Model, and Political Theory from an Islamic Perspective. Okay. The second speaker is Dr. Louay Safi, who used to be on my hallway in Georgetown, I remember, when I joined the university. He's a professor of political science at Hamad bin Khalifa University in Qatar. He's a senior fellow at the Institute for Social Policy and Understanding, ISPU, here in the United States. Dr. Safi has taught at several universities, including Wayne State University, University of Michigan, International Islamic University of Malaysia, and George Washington University in Washington, D.C., Indiana University, and Purdue University in Indianapolis, and also Georgetown University. Dr. Safi has been active in defending human rights and promoting democracy for over 2 decades. He's a founding member of the Syrian National Council, the Syrian National Coalition. He's also a co-founder and first chair of the Syrian American Council and co-founder and former board member of the Center for the Study of Islam and Democracy. He's the author of 15 books, including Quranic Narrative, Tensions and Transitions in the Muslim World, Peace and Limits of War, The Challenge of Modernity. He's been the Dean of Research and a member at the University Senate at the International Islamic University of Malaysia, including with many directorial and senior roles at the International Institute of Islamic Thought, and the editor of the American Journal of Islamic Social Sciences. He also was the president of the Association of Muslim Social Scientists. Finally, our last speaker is Dr. Gülnur Aybet, who is a senior advisor to the president of Turkey, the country Turkey, right? The one that most of our panelists are in right now. A member of the Presidential Security and Foreign Policy Council, and professor of international relations at the National Defense University in Istanbul. She was the former head of the Department of Political Science and International Relations and the founding director of BAUCESS. I don't want to get the pronunciation wrong. The Center for Security Studies at Bahçeşehir University in Istanbul. In 2013, she founded the International Relations Department at Özyeğin University in Istanbul. She held academic posts at the University of Kent, England. Well, that explains her charming accent. Between 2001 and 2013, where she created and directed the first MA program in international security. She also taught at the University of Nottingham in the UK and at Bilkent University in Ankara. Dr. Aybet holds a BA with honors degree in economics and public administration from Royal Holloway, University of London, a master's in international relations from the University of Southampton, and doctorate in war studies from King's College, University of London, and completed her PhD in, I think it was her master's, from King's College London, and completed her PhD in international relations from the University of Nottingham. Professor Aybet has been a principal investigator on many research projects funded by the British Academy, NATO, and TÜBİTAK. She has also held visiting scholar posts at the School of Advanced International Studies, SAIS, at Johns Hopkins here in Washington, D.C., at the Woodrow Wilson Center for International Scholars in Washington, D.C., and at St. Anthony's College in Oxford, where she was also a senior associate member of the college. Dr. Aybet is a well-known commentator on current affairs in many international media outlets, as well as far as I can tell, being the person I've met who's visited and lived in most places in the UK. That's a really impressive number of institutions she's been associated with. Okay. So we'll start with Dr. Saifeldin Abdelfattah, who is going to be speaking about good governance, al-Hukm al-Rasheed, conceptualizing a theoretical framework. And this will be in Arabic. If you want to listen to Arabic, you can. If you want to listen to English translation, just click that button. يا دكتور سيفالدين تفضل.
Thank you very much. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
In the name of God the Almighty.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أقدم هذه المداخلة حول الحكم الرشيد من المنظور الإسلامي وذلك في سياق هذا الإطار المفاهيمي والنظري في هذا السياق. أؤكد في البداية أن هذه الرؤية التي تتعلق بالحكم الرشيد في المنظور الإسلامي إنما تتعلق بضرورة أن يكون هناك رؤية حضارية تسهم في ذلك النهوض الذي يتعلق بهذه الأمة ذلك في سياق الاستيعاب الحضاري والإدراك الحضاري الواعي والنظر الحضاري الواسع وكذلك السلوك الحضاري الذي يرتبط بمثل هذه الأمور التي تتعلق في هذا الإطار لدي بعض المداخل بالنسبة لهذا الموضوع المهم في بناء إطار المفاهيم
Conceptualization.
ذلك المدخل المفاهيمي والأمر الثاني يتعلق بالنماذج التاريخية في الرؤية الإسلامية وفي التاريخ الإسلامي
history.
أيضا منظور نموذج السفينة في هذا السياق الذي يستند إلى حديث النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام حول السفينة يرد ذلك حينما أتحدث عن هذا الموضوع. أيضا المدخل المقاصدي أي الذي يرتبط بالمقاصد الكلية العامة. وأخيرا هناك مدخل تحليل الخطاب والنصوص في هذا المقام. في البداية أود أن أؤكد في هذا المدخل المفاهيمي على غاية الأهمية في مفهوم الحكم الراشد بين الرؤية الغربية والرؤية الإسلامية. هناك كلمات عربية كثيرة مثل الحكم الراشد والحكم الرشيد والحكمانية والحوكمة عربية استخدمت في هذه الكلمة التي تتعلق good governance.
In English, it's only good governance. In this regard, I would like to confirm the problem of interpretation here is related to how can the Islamic vision is based to the concept related to political concept that might be different than the Western concept of politics. The political concept in Islam, from the Islamic perspective, is based on what could be reconciled in this understanding. Confirms that good governance and correct governance, which means the correct governance. At the same time, I would like here also to confirm that about the necessity to look back to what are the different concepts of good governance in the past. When this is a concept that was there in history about, for instance, the Rashidi Caliphate.
هذا المفهوم
This
إنما يؤكد على معاني معينة في
confirms
الحكم
certain
يقوم على
meanings
قاعدة
in governance
الاختيار،
based
يقوم
on
على أساس من الرضا،
selection,
يقوم على
consent,
قاعدة من الشورى،
shura,
وكل هذه القيم
and
الأساسية
all
التي
these
تتعلق
main values related
بالعدل
to
والاختيار
justice
والحرية.
and choice.
في هذا الإطار أيضا أستطيع أن
Also, in this
أؤكد أن
framework,
هذا
I would
المفهوم
like to confirm that
يجب
this
النظر
concept
إليه باعتباره
should be
مفهوم المنظومة.
considered as the concept of a
بمفهوم
system,
المنظومة أن
which
هذا
means
المفهوم يرتبط بمجموعة
that
من
it is
المفاهيم
related to a
الأخرى
number of other
التي
concepts
تتأكد
that are
حينما نتحدث عن مفهوم المسؤولية،
imperative, considered
عن
imperative
مفهوم
when we talk
المساءلة،
about the concept of
عن مفهوم الشفافية، عن
responsibility,
مفهوم
transparency,
عن
accountability,
مفهوم الشرعية،
authority,
عن
power,
المسائل التي تتعلق بالحقوق
legitimacy,
الأساسية،
all things that
وكذلك
are
الأمر
related
الذي
to the
يتعلق
basic
بالسيادة
rights
القانونية أو
and
سيادة
the
القانون،
legal and the rule of law.
وكثير جدا من
And
المفاهيم التي
many other
تتعلق
concepts
بالفهم
that are related to
الديمقراطي في هذا
the
الوطن
democratic
حينما نتحدث
understanding.
عن التعددية
This is when we talk about
وخلاف ذلك من
pluralism
مفاهيم
and
أخرى
other
تتعلق
relevant
بالسلطة
concepts related
وغيرها من
to
مفاهيم.
power, authority, and
أريد
similar
أن
concepts.
أؤكد أن يعني يعني
in this regard,
حمد
during in Hamad University, there was the center designated for good governance.
أنه أيضا يعني عمل في هذا المركز.
And I believe Dr. Safi has worked there for a while.
أسسنا هذا المركز.
So when we've founded this center, we thought of an important project on establishing or tackling the good governance from an Islamic perspective. So it's important in this regard to refer to this issue. Also, other important issues in this concept is the historic entrance. And here I would like to refer a model in the Holy Quran, which is the Pharaoh model in the political relationship. Because the Pharaoh model is against the good governance. It's opposing it's a tyrant. But however, it has characteristics that can be referred to in this prospect. I can't talk much about it in details, but we need to refer that the Quran includes a model about the political relationship, which is called which contradicts with the local governance or the good governance.
كان هذا الرد عليه وما أمر فرعون بالرشيد.
And so the Pharaoh was mentioned in the Quran, and the ruling during the Pharaoh was mentioned, and this was which means that it was contradictory to how good governance is. The Prophet model is also an important model, especially the Prophet's legacy. When we talk about the constitution of the Medina or the Medina newspaper, this newspaper that the Prophet has found a basis for a political group which included a number of citizenship regulations for a complete society, where they Muslims or non-Muslims. And the Jews used to be part of these political parties. So this prophetic biography included all this, and which had same goes for
هذه الجماعة السياسية
security of this political group, just as was mentioned in that document.
أيضا هناك في نماذج الخلافة
There are in the Rashida Caliphate models and preach that was related to concepts, Sharia concepts, rule of law, equality, and the job that is related to and the relationship between the governed and the governee, and the rights of basic rights, humanitarian and human rights. So I would like here to refer to another phase in crisis management. When Omar bin Khattab, when he managed the crisis of Amr. So it is in a context of efficiency. And in this context, I would like to refer back to the Imam Ali, which included rights and a complementary vision about good governance through classifications of maps of social and political maps of the society. There's another model,
ونماذج مؤسسية مثل
institutional model, like the Rouff, for instance,
في بناء نموذج لمجتمعات أهلية ومدنية قادرة على الفاعلية باعتبارها مؤسسات للأمة.
that can represent al-Ummah and that can defend the
نماذج تاريخية
So all these are important historic models.
الحكم الراشد الصالح
when I converse about the good governance, it has its potentials, capacities, necessities, elements, system, and institutions. It has characteristics, dimensions, practice, movement. It has a culture, politics, and tools and mechanisms. It has relationships, visions and strategies and policies. It has challenges and constraints and goals and objectives. And influence and futures. In this regard, I can say to name all these, they're written in English as important elements in building the theoretical and conceptual framework of good governance.
في هذا المقام. أيضا في هذا السياق
in this regard, it's important to point out that this is also related to al-Mawardi. He said that the world can be controlled through 6 religions to follow. A fair imam, party, party, and stability,
سلطان فاعل,
and effective sultan.
في النهاية أمل فسيح. أمل يتعلق بالمستقبل
and hope related to the future.
هذا الأمر يمكن أن يدخل أيضا في إطار
go into the phrasing and drafting of the Islamic vision and governance. So this is a vision that is hope to be achieved. This is what Imam Mawardi had talked about in different 6 different dimensions, as is reflected here in in English.
أيضا في لابد أن أشير إلى نموذج السفينة.
The Safina model or ship model is a model that builds a social framework for a society. Building a good governance framework is an integral part of having a sustainable society.
كمثل قوم
So it is just like people
استعموا على سفينة شاركوا يعني على سفينة
were on a ship
أصاب بعضهم أعلاها وبعضهم أسفلها
and they were
كان الذين في أسفلها إذا استقوا من
the ones who were in the bottom somewhere in the bottom, somewhere on top, and they said if we were if we did not hurt those who are above us or who are beneath us, we might have drowned. But in this way, we are keeping the balance and we're all safe. So this hadith was told by al-Bukhari.
على جملة من الصور الذهنية مهمة. كيف يمكن تصور المجتمع باعتباره سفينة؟
visual pictures or mental
كيف ندرك معنى السفينة؟ كيف ما يمكن أن تقدمه من صور ذهنية ومفاهيم بصرية وأنماط فكرية ومظاهر سلوكية
and behaviors
وعلاقات إنسانية
relationships
وقوانين
and laws
ومقاصد وعواطف مصيرية. من نموذج السفينة نموذج متكامل حينما نفكر في المجتمع وفي مسألة السلطة التي في المجتمع من منظور السفينة يكون ذلك أمرا غاية في الأهمية في بناء هذا
to consider in building and founding this society. And of course there are things related to the ship. However, the ship's model, it's also about social contribution. It's the model of the works that happen on the ship, the daily life, the naming of the safety, security, model of shura and discussion, the model of pluralism, communication model, because this is one of the is needed, and when it's effective and communication is needed, this is where one serves the community on that ship. So it's also the relationship between the society and the state. These are the models, the model of decision making.
كل هذه الأمور إنما تشكل ومن ثم كان هذا التحذير من أن يكون المجتمع والحكم فيه يمثل حالة من الخلط. السفينة المخلوقة السفينة المخلوقة هي الإسكان في هذا السياق وكثير من الفروق التي تمارس في السفينة تكون من هذا الحكم الذي يخضع الحدود الرشاد ويمارس الاستبداد وكذلك المجتمع الذي تكون علاقاته لا تتوائم بأي حال من الأحوال مع الأمور بالقواعد التي تتعلق بالسفينة وقيمها من ثقافة التعايش وثقافة التعدد وثقافة الاتصال وثقافة الاهتمام والمشاركة وثقافة الرقابة وثقافة المسؤولية وثقافة المصالح ودفع الأضرار وثقافة المصالحة
harms and
كل ذلك يتعلق بالسفينة ومدافع الإنقاذ ومن ثم يجب أن تكون هناك نماذج للتنشئة تقوم على قاعدة السفينة منظومة الحكم
So it's the governance or in the society and or socialism. It's the focus of the group in the common interest, the difference, الريفورم, and reconciliation, the communication, contracts, rights, and crisis and salvation of existence. All this is related to related to collective awareness about leadership, social education, psychological education, and to be based on whatever it is needed. So this SHIP decision, where I've created a model related to intentions in this regard. It represents how can a decision be taken in a certain order, which is to maintain the religion, the soul, mind and money and offspring. All these are main functions for the state in good governance. And these are functions that the society is based on. All these are functions where the state and the society work on together. So this is the configuration of model, which gives the decision of how a decision could be taken based on different models. There's not enough time to explain this complicated diagram, because there are priorities to be set, balances, also things related to many matters to keep the harm away, the public holistic intentions, and the elements to build a good governance in all aspects, all priorities, and the tools to maintain it, and the balances of interest, and the balances also of reality, and being able to understand this reality, its requirements, in the means that this good governance requires.
وأبنية ومؤسسات وقواعد
buildings, bases, procedures,
المآلات التي تترتب على الأفعال والسياسات ودراسات واستشراف المستقبل. وفي النهاية شيء مهم جدا أن يرتبط ذلك بمنظومة من العلاقات المهمة وكذلك منظومة من القيم الأساسية التي تشكل البيئة المناسبة والملائمة لهذا
adequate environment for this good governance. So this is what needs to be part of the maqasid. How could it be related to and where there is a strategy that's formulated in good governance. And this is where we'll have many aspects, all issues related to how it could be formalized, formalization of good governance, the sustainability and issues related to balancing all these important issues within this context. So the perspective of maqasid could draft a theory about the rights of a person. When you preserve religion, preserve self and mind and money, and preserves the offspring.
أمر مهم
together is very important in this and when one preserves religion, then it preserves many other things, not only religion.
كل صاحب دين
not only Muslims in this regard, also anyone who has faith from any religion, and it facilitates their demands and the practices. So all this can be put in this vision and have a complete vision and cycle to serve all rights of a human. Therefore, drafting it should be based on a collective concept. Finally, the text, the Nas that is related to good governance. Here I mentioned some. For instance, the preach of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, and this preach that is related also to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the farewell preach that was related to human rights and with all its aspects, and also to consider women's rights in this regard. So all these issues are included in whatever is called 5 readings to analyze this text. You can read it in depth, analyze it, and link it to the situation we're in and the implications that all this would have on good governance. So good governance in public politics can be part of drafting these policies and managing the crisis and decision making. So this is important. This model, that's the model, forms something very important. One of my students built a model for decision making. So this is something similar that is based on balances, priorities, and all these issues that were handled in the different or presented in the different entries. In this regard, we can only learn about an Islamic vision of good governance, whether from the conceptual aspect or other theoretical aspects, or through the different resources that would regain us or help us in understanding this vision theoretically and practically. We are before a very important meaning of good governance that's based on good sustainable governance, the ability to run human resources, sustainability, accountability, rule of law, participation, to invest in the public capital, equal relationships between the regime and the citizens. And that's it. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So you talked about the ship. Is it was this hadith was part of a discussion in politics and good governance, or this discussion was also the use of this hadith? Was it ever used as a source of some ideology, or this is just new in this modern era? I believe that at least even when presenting the idea behind all this, for instance, it was important to see how the breaches in the ship in that model. It was important to think how it was handled. So that was in the historic reading, and this is reading modern reading that I've been working on for 12 years. I've been adopted, and I've presented many readings related to it, but we didn't have enough time to present it all. So I had more than 20 readings related to the foundation of this ship, and it should be an important reading.
Go on English. Okay, I think this is working. Okay, thank you very much. And the next presenter is Dr. Louay Safi, who will be speaking about good governance in Muslim societies, the institutionalization of values, and demarcation of authority. Dr. Safi, you have the floor.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Brown, and Assalamu alaikum. Good evening for everyone who is following this presentation. And let me begin by thanking CIGA for inviting me to present a paper. And thanks for its able director, Dr. Sami Arian. So as Dr. Brown pointed out, the title of my paper addresses the question of good governance in relation to Muslim societies and in relation to the institutional structure of those societies. And I think the notion of good governance, as we all know, is a recent one. It became a concept in the late 1980s, so it's probably 3 decades old. But the good thing about this concept, what's interesting about it, is that it brings 3 elements of political order: the government, the civil society, and public ethics. So governance is not used as what the government does, but governance is a relationship between the government and the people that are either the source of the power of the government, or at least are subject to its rules. And of course, that creates a contractual relationship, as we'll see in a minute. And so what I try to do in my paper is to create a framework, a normative, a value-based framework to try to understand, politics in general, and particularly politics in the Muslim societies in particular. And the fact that we're talking about values, this gives us the opportunity to look not only at contemporary practices, but also at historical. And of course, values, just before I jump into outlining the framework, I would like to say that really the first modern political philosopher that recognized that the politics became subject to values beginning with the Islamic revelation. And I'm referring, of course, here to Hegel, who in his philosophy of history, pointed out that Islam was the first system of rules, or the first society, the first movement to subject politics to moral evaluation. And he said it took Christianity 6 centuries before it started to do the same. So the essence of Islamic politics has always been the fact that it always have been subject to moral evaluation, ethical evaluation. And so values here are very valuable for us to try to look into politics within an Islamic framework, as well as, of course, beyond that. Good governance, as you understand it today, and as has been used at the core of it, is the notion of public ethics, which is, of course, a question of values applied to politics. Okay, so what is that framework, and how we can utilize it? Let me first look at the framework in terms of its historical manifestation. Of course, the framework is based on a set of values that are appropriate to the public sphere. That's to say, public values, values like the value of justice, the value of fairness, the value of equality, the value of equal dignity. Those values, all of us today believe, are at the center of politics. But its early manifestation can be seen really, as Hegel pointed out, within early Islamic expression. We could find it, for example, as many scholars have tried to do in the Constitution of Medina, in the Compact of Medina, the Constitution of Medina, or as Ibn Hisham calls it, Saifeldin Medina, the paper of Medina. So this paper established political order, not based on a theocracy, not based on belief in transcendence, but on the values that emanates from that belief. So if we review that document, we find that it's about affirming justice, establishing security, collective security, ensuring that no one is above the judgment of justice, no matter who that person is, what religion is, establishing pluralism, that's to say plurality of the community and the right of people of different religion to be free, so freedom of religion, etc. And as you can see, from day one, the model that was set by the Prophet ﷺ was an ethical model that is concerned with the well-being of the collectivity. And it's based on a contractual agreement between the component of that early society. But then we find the same approach, the same model, the same framework applied even in later times. All of us are familiar with the work of al-Mawardi, which Professor Saifeldin Abdelfattah just pointed to. This model is based really on the concept of contract. So leadership, according to that particular approach, which of course al-Mawardi did not really invent something new, but tried to summarize the collective understanding of the Muslim scholars of that time. So political authority is exercised based on a contract between what he calls an imam, or the leader, political leader, and the ummah, that's to say the people, the community. And he spelled out a number of conditions or principles that are essential for that contract to take place. And he pointed out that failing the imam or the leader's failure to uphold those principles will justify deposing him. Of course, we know that he didn't have any procedures for that. He had put out some procedure to selecting the leader, the political leader, the head of the community, but he had no clear-cut way for displacing him or discharging that person from authority for good reasons, as we all know. Now, what is also significant is that from the early time, no one was above the law. Everyone was to be under the law. Even the sultan, who comes to power through the strength of his clan or his military forces, those who fight to support him, that person had to be subject to the rule of law. or as al-Mawardi put it, the sultan that comes to power through force can only be legitimate if he does two things. First, he would recognize the authority of the Khalifa, and then he has to uphold the Sharia, the Islamic law. So my point here is that yes, the early community and for the greater part of Muslim history, there was no application of shura in terms of what we understand today in terms of democracy. So there was no constitutional shura, but a tribal society could not be contained within a constitutional order, and it took immediately the well popular form of the time, which is the monarch in an empire. I mean, something that turned into becoming an empire. So we can understand the nature of the historical context. But my point is that even with all the flaws that one can identify, of course, with the benefit of advanced human collectivity, still at the heart of the whole thing was always values, and these are universal values. And that takes me to the second point in my paper, which is, where do we get those values? What kind of values? Of course, I pointed out to the notion of justice, the notion of freedom of religion, but as we start to read in the work of, let's say, 6th, 7th century scholars, we see a lot of sophistication in terms of how to understand the rule of law within a very vibrant society. And of course, the term here is Sharia. And what I would like here to spend a couple of minutes to really clarify this very confusing concept in our modern times, because even our contemporary scholars confuse Sharia with fiqh. So Sharia, I have argued, I don't have the time to elaborate, but let me just summarize the argument. I argue that Sharia consists of universal principles that are derived from the Islamic sources. So Sharia has nothing to do with the particular. It only has to do with the universal. And this is, of course, not a new invention. One can find it not only in the work of, let's say, scholars like al-Jibai, who was a Mu'tazilite, or al-Juwayni and Ghazali, who were Ash'arites, but also in the work of Al-Izz bin Abd al-Salam. In fact, the most sophisticated elaboration of the notion of Sharia, you find it in his work. And in fact, he defines it in a very interesting way. He says, Sharia is concerned with promoting common good. الشريعة كلها نصائح. Sharia is made of advices or precepts لجلب المصالح ودرء المفاسد, in order to promoting the common good or the human good, and to avoiding mafasid, which is corruption and harm caused because of that corruption. So as you could tell at this point, Sharia has been turned into a set of universal principles, really, that has to do with the maintaining the well-being of people within society. And it has been elaborated tremendously in that work Later, it was even elaborated a bit more with more clarity in the work of Shatibi. But this is really what Sharia, and every scholar of worth within Islamic history have really insisted that this usul or Sharia has nothing to do with the particular; it has all to do with the universal, and therefore, Sharia really is about those maqasid, for example, maqasid al-Sharia, which are 5 historically, but today really we can expand them into much more, because those 5 maqasid or purposes of Sharia are only part of one concept of the Quran, which is justice. Remember that our early scholars, most of them were judges and were concerned about establishing the rule of law within society, not necessarily in the area of economics or politics, but in terms of dealing with conflict within society between individuals. So what that means? It means that really, to talk about Sharia today, we have to talk about the universals, because only the universal can have effect across time and space. Every particular is really connected to the particular time and space that generated it. So the particular is the historical, while the universal is that principle that really can apply at any time. And these principles we call values, universal values that I pointed to. And in fact, we find in the work of Al-Izz bin Abdussalam a good effort to distinguish between those aspects of Sharia that are based on meaning, and those that are based on ta'abbud, what he calls ahkam ta'abbudiyya, those rules that are relating to being a Muslim, not only a person of Tawheed in the larger sense of Tawheed as the Quran uses it, but also in the sense of the followers of the final revelation. But then everything else, and the Quran of course talks about Sharia in these 2 senses, and that's where Al-Izz bin Abdussalam took his clue, talks about Sharia as for all prophets. شرع لكم من الدين ما أوصينا به نوحا. And the Quran then sort of recite or list a number of prophets who received Sharia in this sense, which is the common Sharia. This is the common word that bring different Tawheedic communities together. And then you have the Sharia, لِكُلٍّ جَعَلْنَا مِنكُمْ شِرْعَةً وَمِنْهَاجًا. So each community has its own Sharia in terms of its own religious practices, but there is something common, which is the universal principles, what we call today the universal human values that are shared by all humans. But definitely those values that we call the human have been developed and evolved within the Tawheedic sort of communities, beginning with the Israelites, then the Muslims, and then we find the early work to try to develop a system of universal rules in the work of the idealists, Kant, Hegel, and particularly the Germanic idealists were concerned about the universal, and we all know Kant really tried to save the monotheistic tradition, at least in differentiating between what we see and the reality of things, and at the same time maintaining that there is a transcendence in the human life. So let me then conclude, so I don't want to take more time. How much do I have, Dr. Braun? I didn't really...
You have 4 minutes.
4 minutes. Okay, that would be good for me to move to talk a bit about how those universal principles that we can find in Sharia, which are shared by all monotheistic traditions, and today, of course, after they have been sort of evolved and conceptualized and made into systems and system of ideas and values are shared by humanity, at least in the notion of human rights. Let us look at how those can help really transform Muslim societies, which unfortunately we all know they have been suffering tremendously from authoritarian regimes. The most harsh regimes today in the world are in the Muslim societies, particularly in the Arab society. Let me be more specific. And of course, the notion of good governance based on values is very helpful, because my argument in the paper is that the problem, the reason why democracy and the rule of law failed in Arab societies is because values are not related to politics in those societies today, in modern society. There's complete divorce between values and politics, despite, of course, the rhetorics, but on the level of sort of education in the schools and even in the family, there are little effort to instill those values of equality, respecting for the other, even if you disagree with them, respecting the plurality of religion, and etc. So what I talked about at the end of my paper is what I called here socio-political pluralism as a vision for organizing Muslim societies. And in fact, this is really a good vision for organizing society as we sort of move toward this global age, as we are drifting closer to a time where even the state cannot be a sovereign state in the old sense of the word. So the notion of socio-political pluralism that I used here is really something that also we find in the work of a few contemporary modern thinkers, like John Rawls in his book Political Liberalism has talked about how to bring religion, or allow religion to have a role within the pluralist system, or the political system, the liberal system. And that's why he differentiates between political liberalism and social liberalism. The same thing we find in the work of Jürgen Habermas, who has really done a tremendous work recently in the last decade to try to ensure that pluralism is not only in terms of political ideologies, but also in terms of social cultures and religious traditions. The current model of pluralism really is not very friendly to religious diversity. Perhaps, except in the United States, it is more advanced. But if you look at Europe or China or any other modern society, there's little room for religious pluralism. In Europe, the morality of the ruling class is the one that is being imposed on society, which has its roots in Christianity, of course, but in fact, it has taken from this Latin Christian tradition of exclusivism. We see today in the secularist exclusivism that has transpired in Europe. So to make the long story short, given the limit of time, what I try to do here is to look into differentiation of both the state and civil society. Now, this differentiation, of course, is not something new, but the idea here is to take it a bit further by coupling it with the notion of a private public law. So this is very important to distinguish between public law, which is applied in the public sphere, the shared sphere, and then allowing cultures and religions to have their own private law. So that will really help liberate people of religion. I mean, look at for example, the Jewish experience in Europe. It has been unpleasant, mainly because this equality that was imposed on them is equality in which Christian understanding of society and Christian morality has to be imposed on them. And that didn't help. So socio-political pluralism as a proposed concept that need to be, of course, advanced further. But I tried to look into it in comparison with the work of Rouff and Habermas, and at the same time with the experience of Muslims, because we all know that Muslims were very good at trying to provide a free space, a private space to people who lived with them, but they follow different religions. That's why these communities were always able to have their private laws, and they can develop their rules. They don't have to really live under rules that reflect the morality of the Muslims, but they have their own morality, their own understanding of religion, and how it can be lived, not only professed, but lived within their communities. But then they were, then outside of the private sphere of civil society and the law, the private law, then people are all citizens of the political order under the same rule of law that are regulating the public sphere. So I'm going to stop here. I hope I was also speaking a bit fast. I hope that will not affect the translation, but I look forward to any comments or engagement with some of those ideas I put forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Safi. Okay, and our last speaker is Professor Dr. Aybet, who will be speaking about good governance and the challenges of multilateralism.
Thank you very much. Good evening again, everybody. I'm going to talk more from an international relations perspective on global governance and good governance practices as they have become dominated in global governance. So I want to start off by talking about what global governance is. Basically, it's different ways in which organizations, institutions, and governments manage their affairs with certain laws, regulations, and customs, standards, and of course, norms. Good governance in the global governance sense means that these affairs are managed well, not necessarily that the rules and regulations themselves are good. So I guess, there's a difference between good governance within society and states and good governance in the global sphere. So first of all, I wanted to sort of put that forward. So when we talk about good governance in international relations, in the global sense, it basically means that all of these affairs are managed well, but not necessarily, doesn't really question whether the rules that are laid down are necessarily good. So global governance at the end of the day is really about, it's an international process really, about how consensus is formed. And at the end of the day, that consensus is usually formed through power relations. So again, it's very different from what we talk about good governance within states when, the previous speakers have also talked about such things as, social contracts and norms and values. This doesn't mean that in international governance, we don't have norms, we do. But then the problem that lies with global governance and good governance in the global sense is that how those norms are applicable, or if they mean anything to everybody, and how all these relations get managed. So I just want to roll things back to 1945, because I guess the global governance as we know it really started then with the end of the Second World War. And it really has become a Western dominated practice. I suppose that's a very wide way of looking at it, but if we say that there's a transatlantic core that dominates global governance practices, I suppose that would be much closer than the more broad term Western. There's also an sort of, obviously, that the situation, the power relations at the end of the Second World War led to the creation of various international institutions, and these became the bedrock of global governance. But it's actually from the 1990s onwards, with the fall of the Soviet Union, that we see a lot of the institutions that were created to preserve what was called back then a so-called Western Bloc became kind of integrated with the larger institutions, such as the truly global institutions, such as the United Nations, and which is the embodiment of international law as we know it, into a larger picture of a transatlantic dominated global order, if you like, a liberal international order. Within this order, because its roots are so much embedded in the 1945 setup, there's also a certain oughtness. I know that's not a real word, but I tend to use it a lot. Oughtness means that, you know, somebody tells you this is the way it ought to happen. This is the way good governance should be. This is the way how countries ought to be. And this is actually very much part and parcel of this whole setup, if you like, of international institutions and how they're dominated by the practice, if you like, of a few powerful states. And you can see this very much in the writings as to how diplomacy ought to be conducted and how countries ought to conduct themselves. Even in the writings of George Kennan, you can find these when he's talking about the Soviet Union and how it ought to conduct itself as a government among governments. And that, I think, phrase says it all. A government among other governments means that, you know, you belong to a certain club and you have to follow the club rules. And therefore, there are certain ways that you ought to behave. Now, all of this is very good, of course, because in a sense, there's a benign side to this when we look at how much states do actually value order. And therefore, they need to have some sense of predictability as to how other countries are going to behave towards them and how they're going to behave towards other countries. So they like to see that continuity and that stability and order because it helps them in their transactions internationally. Therefore, they will actually impose certain rules and regulations that will inhibit them as well, that will put strains on their behavior as well. And they do this voluntarily for the simple reason that they would like to have order in the international system. Now, that is the good side of it. The bad side of it, of course, is that this creates an entirely sort of, especially since the 1990s, and given the lack of, alternative regional power rivalry that existed immediately after the Cold War, a sort of predominance of, let's say, Western, in the broader sense, domination of global governance and what good governance means. And this has brought us way into 1995 with the multilateralism versus sovereignty dilemma, with concepts such as responsibility to protect. And beyond that, the lack of, in the incapacity actually of international institutions to actually implement concepts that they've created themselves, like responsibility to protect. Not because they were hindered by the concept of sovereignty, but because they couldn't agree on what it meant among themselves. And that is precisely why the UN Security Council has been deadlocked since the NATO-led operation in Libya, because after that, Russia said that they would no longer endorse any Western or US-led operation, even for humanitarian purposes, if it was going to lead to regime change. So again, you get these different interpretations about what is right and wrong in the international system. We've come full circle of the 1990s, where everything it's imposed in a very top-down fashion, to an absolute deadlock in how international institutions work. Part of this, I also want to talk about good governance in post-conflict reconstruction and state building. This is also an important part of the 90s, where we saw international institutions taking on unprecedented roles in intervention for humanitarian reasons, in intervening in these countries and regions, and then putting together an entire process of state building, from writing to constitutions to delivering good practices of good governance and what it ought to be like. The one example that comes to mind is Bosnia in this respect, because the conditions there were imposed in a top-down pattern, and they never met this top-down imposition of governance and norms, never met with the actual coming together at the grassroots level of sustainable peace at the grassroots level. So there was actually a disconnect between an internationally imposed top-down state building and the collective growth of local, if you like, norms on sustainable peace at the grassroots level. And the reason for that is because I call this, I did a lot of work on Bosnia. This is why I thought Bosnia would be a good example as well, because it sort of very much sort of embodies this sort of Western dominance at this time of, what good governance practices mean in the international context. So it comes down to what I call norm transfusion. It's not necessarily norm diffusion, whereby, the international community brings forth a set of norms that are then accepted by local elites in a country, and then these trickle down to society, where they become welded, if you like, or grafted with local norms and local culture, where then it becomes its own, it becomes something else. It doesn't become top-down imposed, it becomes local and universal at the same time. Now, when you have the imposition of state building like you did in Bosnia and many other places, you don't have this diffusion where the local norms get socialized, if you like, and taken on. Instead, you get a transfusion, like a blood transfusion of norms, but they don't really get internalized. And this is one of the main problems, I think, of 1990s practices of state building. And the way in which international institutions were used during this process for building, if you like, states, and based on the values and the norms of liberal internationalism. So free market economies, democratic institutions, human rights, all of these norms were built into the discourses that went into state building in the official documents of the time of NATO, the EU, the OSCE, the UN, the World Bank, all kinds of institutions that are, the bedrock of global governance, if you like, going into a place like Bosnia to engage in state building. So they were writing the norms there. But with, norm transfusion, which is basically the direct imposition of norms in this way, really, as I mentioned, bypasses the local networks. And this is because domestic institutions as such, in any case, are weak in post-conflict societies. So this is a problem in all international efforts to induce good governance through state building in post-conflict societies. You get a set of externally imported norms. They get transfused through elites to governance, but they rarely trickle down to grassroots. So the problem is not unique to Bosnia. And most Western-dominated attempts at state building and post-conflict reconstruction around the world have come across this problem. So, but Bosnia, like I said, is a very good example of Western dominance in the discourses and implementation of good governance and the use of global governance and multilateralism as tools to achieve this. So it was just, I suppose, an example in this sense. But when we look at the wider picture of global governance, there, in the 1990s, this transatlantic core that dominated all of these practices has not gone away, and it still leads and shapes international thinking on global governance, and it still leads and shapes what good governance ought to be. And this is very important because I think right now, when we do leave the post-1945 situation behind us, when we leave the 1990s behind us, what we have reached now is the global order itself going through a transition. But who are the dominant shapers of discourse in global governance? Once again, it's this transatlantic core. Now, that leads us to the question, which I suppose is the main issue of this whole conference. Where is the Muslim world in all of this? And how the discourse on how Muslims fit into this world order and revisions of it, again, that discourse seems to be largely Western dominated. And there's twofold, there's two aspects to this discourse. First, there's the Muslim states, or states that have a majority of a Muslim population. And then there are Muslim societies in the Western world. So the way dominant discourses look at Islam in a sort of predominant liberal world order is, how first of all do Muslim states or states with large Muslim populations fit into world order or global governance, and secondly, Muslim societies in Western countries and how they fit in there. With the second one, that is Muslim societies in Western countries, there is a dilemma for liberalism, because on one hand, you have the so-called goodness of multiculturalism, multi-faith, pluralist societies, which liberalism does endow, versus the growing Islamophobia that comes not only just from right-wing or racist movements against pluralistic values, but Islamophobia can also come from liberalism itself. Because as Western embedded liberal values are more aggressively and defensively imposed contrary to cultural and religious beliefs of others, then you find tensions coming there from liberalism itself as well. When it comes to states or Muslim states, again, the classification of these states in dominating Western discourse on global governance, again, is very simplistic, because you either look at them as proxies, partners, allies, or those states that are anti-globalism, anti-systemic, and therefore disruptors. So there's an either-or classification there when it comes to states, but with societies in Western countries, Muslim societies, there's tensions due to Islamophobia coming from right-wing movements that are anti-plural, but Islamophobia also coming from liberalism itself, as liberalism becomes more threatened and aggressive, if you like, in imposing its own values. This brings us to the question, when we talk about societies, Muslim societies in the West, is what kind of pluralism are we talking about? Is the Muslim world expected to fit into a certain idea of Western defined pluralism? Is it expected to comfortably sit in a Western defined pluralist society as part of something bigger? Can Muslim societies living in Western countries accept this definition of who they are as social beings? And if they raise objections to this conception of pluralism and keep themselves to themselves, are they then seen as anti-systemic, anti-pluralist, anti-liberal, and therefore anti-good governance. So there's also a sequence of logic there in this discourse that takes you down to being anti-good governance because you're against anti-pluralism. So all of these, in Europe particularly, are a profound problem. Now, we mentioned that within these societies you have two tensions, one from right-wing, more sort of racist backlashes, but also from a very strictly imposed liberalism itself. Add on to that issues of national security and counterterrorism. It's a huge problem for particularly Europe, where you find that Muslim societies are under greater imposed scrutiny, harassment, even due to national security concerns. So all of these three things, the national security, the right-wing movements, increased pluralism that is becoming increasingly imposing. All of these have an effect on how non-Muslim parts of these societies look upon their Muslim neighbors. And that creates a fourth ring of tensions. So how to fix this problem? I think it all starts with the bigger picture. As to, if we go back to states, I mean, I just talked about Muslim societies in the West, but if we think about Muslim states or states with predominantly Muslim populations in this whole global system, it really starts with that bigger picture. If they are given a better share in global good governance practices, this is bound to trickle down to Muslim societies in Western countries. And a lot of the anger in Muslim societies in the West comes from observing the Muslim world, i.e. Muslim states, excluded from global practices of governance, which are still dominated by the transatlantic core. Now, I know a lot of liberals will probably put their hands in the air and say, well, Muslims are not excluded actually from global governance, but you have to also look at it from, the perspective of Muslim societies in the West, and some of these attempts to put, a Muslim presence in global governance sometimes is perceived as putting a token Muslim for window dressing, which isn't going to work either. So in this picture, Muslims should not be viewed by those who dominate the liberal world order, that is the transatlantic core, as a mere attachment to a liberal notion of pluralism. And I think this brings us to the final section of my talk, which is going to be about where we are now. So, at the juncture of shaping a changing world order. As the world order is going through a very grand realignment process, I wouldn't call it a redesigning, like I suppose 1945 was a designing of an order, 1990 was designing of an order, but this, I think, is definitely a realignment or a readjustment, because no one has the power or the monopoly to design anything anymore in the international system. So in this realignment or readjustment, we actually see in the international system the emergence of three realities or three challenges. The first of these is the return of great power rivalry. The rise of Russia and China have really posed a very existential challenge to the dominant liberal world order and those who would like to maintain it. So the return of great power rivalry is the first reality. The second reality is, I suppose, something that doesn't really get read in great detail by the Muslim world, but it's actually a crack, if you like, within the Western world, which is profoundly affecting this realignment. And it's an ideological clash between those who are trying to preserve a liberal world order inherited from the 90s, and those who have an anti-globalist, anti-pluralist agenda, who are inward-looking, mercantilists who also unfortunately feed off right-wing movements. So this ideological clash is not really happening in the Middle East or in Asia or anywhere else. It's happening in the West, in Europe, in America. And again, this is very interesting. The challenges for the liberal world order created by the West is being challenged also with an ideological struggle from within itself. The third reality at this juncture of change is the emergence of what I suppose is a needs-based order after COVID-19. When I say a needs-based order, we're really, I think, more and more going to see transnational transactions increasing. For example, the rush to create the vaccine was one example of this, how we actually saw different scientists from different countries, different companies, different regions of the world, sometimes in competition, but mostly we see a lot of cooperation coming out of this. So if there is an urgent need for a commodity that the whole world needs, we see more cooperation that transcends nations and countries. And this, again, I suppose, is not so much of a challenge to the liberal world order as it stands, but it's something new. It's a new reality that it has to sort of internalize and adjust to. So the next question I suppose I have is like, where does the Muslim world stand with regards to these three realities or challenges to the present international order? Are we seeing an ownership by the Muslim world on these approaches to tackle these three challenges? The ideas to tackle these three challenges, again, are predominantly rising from a transatlantic core. And there are two ideas that have so far emerged. And in these two ideas or notions that are being put forward, again, we're seeing the Muslim world not there quite. But it's still the beginning. I mean, I'm sure that somewhere down the road this will be addressed. But in the beginning, the Muslim world is sort of silent, invisible in this. The first is the World Economic Forum's Great Reset, which is trying really to recreate or sort of adjust a liberal world order, renew a capitalist world order by addressing the issue that has left us with the post-COVID crisis, that is resilience of societies, and also to rebuild trust in international institutions. But again, the way the reset is being approached right now, I'm sure it's somewhere down the line this is going to be addressed, but it's still new, is quite simplistic in the way that it's also already lumping those who are for pluralism and those who are against, those who are populist and those who are anti-global. And these, I think, are very simplistic divisions that don't help us to understand this great transition that the world is going through. And I think the Muslim world, Muslim states have a lot to contribute with their ideas about global justice. Turkey has been, our President Erdogan has been, a champion of this. Every year at the UN, he talks about, global justice and issues and the need for UN reform and how the world is now bigger than 5, which it undoubtedly is. So all of these things, I think, need to be brought to the attention of the Muslim world more, rather than having an inward-looking reflection on good governance. We really need to understand, where is global governance now? What are the challenges? What could be our positive input into these processes? How can we actually become a stakeholder? How can we help to shape these things? And I think that is going to be a very important challenge for the Muslim world. The second idea that's been floating around, again, coming from this transatlantic core, is the idea of a D10, a democracies of 10 countries. Of course, this could grow, still the beginning. The idea is to include Australia, South Korea, and India into the G7 sort of framework to have a sort of global alliance of democracies. Again, it's going to be democracy as defined by a very sort of Western definition of it. And again, it all depends if this is going to be something very exclusive and or something that is aiming to be inclusive in good governance. Because at the end of the day, when you're talking about an alliance of democracies, you're really talking about good governance. And one has to really look at the intentions behind this, and the fact that it should be more inclusive, I think, is very important. So final word, I think also from what I have said throughout my paper is that a lot of these practices that have come to evolve since 1945 and after 1990s have really been power driven. So it's the powerful in the international system that define the norms, impose the norms, maintain control over the international institutions that safeguard the norms. But I think after COVID, our definitions of power are also going to change, which is precisely why initiatives such as the Grand Reset, initiatives such as the D10 are going to look more and more into this challenge as well, like what is power? For example, the COVID crisis also taught us one thing, that it's not necessarily the most economically or militarily powerful that can go through a crisis unscathed. It's the countries that have the greatest capacity to adapt to crises, to adapt in international crises, and who have the most resilient societies, that they're going to come out more powerful after this. So our concepts of power are also changing. There's a profound realignment going on, and I think it's very important that the Muslim world finds its place in it. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you very much. That was very interesting. I know you have to go take care of some other obligations, so I want to give you a chance to answer questions first. One thing that I thought was interesting listening to your talk is, is there a way to think about? I guess in some ways this notion of governance is sort of inherently liberal, but is there a way? The way liberal gets used today, there's sort of like a hard liberalism, and then there's a much more kind of minimalistic, soft liberalism. Do you think that there's like even with all the things that have changed and kind of fragmentation since what happened in Libya, do you think that there's still kind of like the bare bones basic understanding of governance that still is accepted by all global powers wherever they are on the spectrum?
Yeah, I think so. When you think about it, everybody wants to see good governance practices, social justice, welfare. These are universal values. Similarly, the norms, that are being imposed, probably sometimes in the wrong way, by a transatlantic core, are universal norms. Who's to argue that democracy and human rights are a bad thing? Of course, they're a good thing. So I think on the level of common norms, there's more in common than there are diversifications. I think the issue is not so much with the norms themselves, but with the methods by which they are imposed that we have a problem. And those really need to be addressed. And what I tried to sort of put forward here is that it shouldn't be just, dominated by a few trying to do this, but the Muslim world, whether it be Muslim societies in Western countries or states who have predominantly Muslim populations, they should try and become, I think, stakeholders in this discourse. I think the discourse is changing right now. It's a very challenging time, but I also think it's a very exciting time, full of opportunities, whereby people can actually become part of this and sort of try to string together all these other things that we have in common. And put forward their ideas on how they should be implemented if we find that there are problems in how they're implemented.
Do you think that there's do you think that have there been any surprises in terms of, resilience, like since COVID-19? Do you think that, it's predictable which societies or countries have proven remarkably resilient and which haven't? Or, is this something that's discussed or that you have any insights on?
Sorry, you saying which societies are more resilient?
Have there been any surprises since COVID-19? Do you think that there are any societies that have proven resilient that maybe people wouldn't have expected, and vice versa?
Well, non-resilient, I suppose, is, a surprise coming, when we look at how Europe initially coped, how America coped, and how it's still coping, not having, in some places, robust healthcare systems, not adapting very well to the immediacy of the crisis. I think Turkey responded very well in the immediate level of the crisis. And I think we had a very good example of good governance there. And but I don't think that came as a surprise because we knew that we had a very robust healthcare system that was not overwhelmed. A large problem in a lot of Western countries was how quickly healthcare systems were overwhelmed at the early stages when it sort of hit suddenly. And then they adjusted and tried to sort of keep it under control. But a lot of these things, like COVID, when they hit, they will hit suddenly. So, this is what we're talking about now with regards to resilience of societies, not just in the West, but in a global scale, because this is, what's important, how you respond first to it as it comes.
Yeah, I remember one thing I noticed driving around Turkey is, you see hospitals everywhere. They just, it's like, drive around, you see 1, 2, 3 hospitals. So yeah, there's a lot of capacity. Well, thank you very much, Dr. Aybet. I know you have to go, so if you have to leave.
I can't stay, and the other presentations were also very interesting, and I'm sorry I'm not going to be able to listen to your answers and questions, but it's been a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Asha, I liked your presentation. I wanted to engage you, but maybe another time, because really this is an area of my interest as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Good evening to you all.
Okay, so let's see. Questions. Okay. So there's a couple of questions that can be for anybody who wants to answer. This conference is about governance, but nobody has really discussed the impact and problem of external interference against Muslim governance. The West acted quickly to eliminate Mohammed Morsi before he had a chance to govern, and we have historical examples of united efforts against leaders like General Abdel Nasser. Aren't we naive to think that good governance in the Ummah would be left alone? So this is up to whoever wants to answer.
I can do that if it's okay. Well, I think. Well, first of all, we have probably have heard the presentation by Dr. Aybet, which is really focusing on this very dimension as very important, globalization as it relates to Muslims, and of course as it relates to the entire, entire humanity. And I do believe really we are in a transitional times. Anytime you see a lot of this post and new, then know that there is something that has to come, after our point of modernization. So we're talking about post-modernization, post-modernity, and the new Kantian and new whatever. My point here is that if we, that's why I wanted to bring this paradigm of value-based political order to think about, because that will reconnect Muslims with the global order. We have been talking a lot in exclusive terms about Islamic this and Islamic that, which is understandable given the fact that we need to understand what is Islamic today. But we cannot stop here by having Islamic in every conversation. We have to bring again our own values, which are really at the heart of the monotheistic traditions, you know, those values that are shared today, particularly. Of course, at one point, Latin Christianity did not share a lot of the values that we have today, but this contemporary Christianity shares a lot of what we have. And I would dare to say that liberalism is not really necessarily a counter force. We have issues today with the new liberalism, but in terms of classical liberalism, in terms of the political system that emphasizes rights and liberties and want to hold the political leadership accountable, want to establish a rule of law, this is really what also our values call for. So what I'm trying to say here is that unless we, first of all, start to speak about our issues in universal terms, definitely we need to bring them down into the level of culture. But those transition from the universal to the cultural would be more effective if we don't keep talking about our history and our politics and about economics in terms of what early Muslims did and how we should learn from their own order. I'm worried about that. I see it in Islamic economics. I see it in political Islamic politics, or when Muslims talk about politics. So we need to start to talk in universal terms, because really that's what Islam, the first global order was established in the in fact, between the 2nd and the 4th centuries. That was the beginning of Muslims trying to unite humanity, to create, sort of channels of communication, of exchange of ideas, of science, of culture. And we could see that when we look at the history in the eyes of particularly not the military historians, but like people, biographers, people like Ibn Battuta. When you read, they are fascinated of how fluent these cultures were interacting with complete respect for that diversity. So I don't want really to labor this point much, but the point is that we need to deal with our external challenge through our ability to bring our values and express them in universal terms, to look into solutions that not only for us as Muslims, but for humanities. And I do believe really, the West today, in the Western literature, people started to talk about the post-secular order. This is a very important topic that are being discussed not within the religious communities, but by people like John Tyler and Habermas himself has been part into it, Rouff as well. So if we learn how to start to engage that particular line of thinking, of course, we know that you have the new liberal line of thinking, which is about building hierarchy. So that's where Islam today can be very important, because Islam is about egalitarianism, is about rejecting this hierarchy and looking at relationship, political, economic, within sort of human equality and equal dignity. Thank you.
السلام عليكم دكتور سيف الدين. سئل للجميع ماذا عن التدخل الدول الخارجية
intervention of foreign countries.
في العالم الإسلامي أو لو حتى لو قام بلد مسلم أو دولة مسلمة بحكومة فعالة راشدة، يعني رأينا في مصر ما حدث، أن هناك إما يعني رضاء من تدخل بعض الدول المشكلة أو حتى تدخل من بلاد غربية مباشرة. هل هو من الساذج أن نظن أن المسلمين يستطيعون أن يعني يمكن لهم الفرصة أن يقوموا الحكومات الراشدة والفعالة؟
طبعا يعني هذا سؤال مهم.
Of course, and that's an important question.
الدولي والواقع.
It tackles the international reality, regional reality, which is against the vision, or against a special vision regarding the Islamic print of good governance.
أعتقد أن
I believe
ثورات الربيع العربي
the Arab Spring
الحديث عن
revolutions confirmed this, and like this the ship hadith that I've talked about. This is one of the main topics that are related to legal governance.
أظن أن
I believe
هذا الأمر الذي
that this topic that's related to this big gap in this system. So it's where which rejects the pluralism concept. Should have a vision, distinguished vision, or let's say a specific vision, especially when it comes to good governance. And here I would like to confirm another vision
وفقا لحديث السفينة أيضا
based on also the ship's hadith, that there is a denouncement of this logic, that there could be a catastrophe as a consequence of universal governance, and about the grave digger when he called and presented a new call for the living, and claimed that the West
يعني قد يرتكب كثير من الأمور التي
commit many of the things that
التعامل
touch these values and that contradict with the values we preach for. So in this context, I believe all these issues should be taken into consideration when we talk about this system, which also means that the Muslim world has to bear some responsibility in many of what it presents, images that might harm the Islamic vision itself. I know that there are those who try to harm this Islamic vision, and we really need a bigger and broader vision to regain the different visions, especially when it comes to regimes and governance. And what we see inside as we see inside the Western societies. So there might be some sectors in the Muslim world that do practice good governance, but they need to be expanded. Do you believe that the obstacles for practicing a good governance in the Islamic world
whether this year or the start of the 2021, are they bigger than obstacles that were 10 years ago or 5 years ago, or they're less?
أنا أعتقد إنه هذه
I believe these challenges and obstacles have increased a lot, and I believe that there's an escalation in what could be called the right wing in the West, and an escalation of in Islamophobia. This plays a big role in how things are perceived, and when we talk about history as if the liberal history had won over every other ideology, and that nothing else, no other ideologies would be adopted. So what we can do is we need to benefit from the universal experiences. So this has a big, this is related with power, authority, and the breaks that in controlling the power and the tyranny. All these matters need to be acknowledged, and actually this is when we say that these are there's a disparity in these visions and the universal system. So that's why there should be a real universal governance. Are you optimistic or pessimistic, Dr. Louay?
I'm actually optimistic, and I think particularly, I think globalization, although many Muslims don't like it, I think this is something that we need to learn how to not only live with, but to become effective and participant in it. Because particularly Muslim, Arab countries, I mean, of course, there are countries like Turkey that has been able to sort of establish its own footing as a society with internal cohesiveness and leadership that represent the aspirations and the values of the community. But in the Arab world in particular, and where is really this, there is a lot of focus on it by European countries and of course by the United States. These countries, even after 100 years since they became sort of established as a political entities, and over half a century of independence, they are still under the control, their leadership that is, still part of the colonial, this new colonial structure. You could see it recently with Macron and the Sisi. It's very, very telling, this attempt to honor someone who has been killing people and in the prisons and in this kind of fake trials. But my point is, I'm really optimistic. Also, I'm more optimistic by what's going on in Europe and the United States in terms of Muslims trying to find their way in this new society, trying to bring the Islamic values. They are holding strongly onto those values, but still looking at how they can relate them to their new modern society. And I would like really, Muslims to start to think about the West not as a sort of a solid entity, but a very vibrant society that has elements that share with Muslims a lot of their concerns. And I think with the rise of neoliberalism and its impact on Western society, probably this is an important window for Muslims to try to unite and to establish channels of communication and collaboration beyond their, you know, their religious centered views of the world. I know it's difficult for people who are being challenged to think globally, but I think that's what Islam is all about. Rahmatan al-Alameen, compassion to humanity. I mean, this has been the concern of Muslims from day one, even as they were a small tribal society. And with that attitude, they were able to unite, as I mentioned earlier, to create the first global order, the first global system. Now, here we are really, and I believe there is no escape of moving into what we can call the global age. Many things point into that direction. So let us, as intellectuals within the Muslim community, to think about how we could have an impact, not necessarily through the state system, but through civil society and through initiatives at the level of civil society, both in the Muslim world and particularly within Muslim communities all over the world, but particularly in Europe and North America. You are muted, or at least I don't hear you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think I had the wrong thing on. Yeah, so the yeah, I thought it was a joke when I read that Macron had given Sisi the Legion of Honor. I thought it was an Onion article. I mean, what kind of? I can't even want to think about it. It's so ridiculous. I guess the other questions. Oh yeah, one question for you, Dr. Safi. Basically, to summarize it, I mean, we can talk about notions of justice and shared notions of justice and things, but I mean, I guess one of the problems is, I mean, if you think about, let's take human rights as an example, right? Let's take an example that won't be offensive. Let's say that 10 years from now, somebody says that, you know, getting free refills at restaurants should be a human right, and then you know, some group of countries decide to sanction some other country because it doesn't guarantee free refills in restaurants. So how do we, you know, how do we, if the idea is that human rights are supposed to be things that all reasonable humans agree on, then how do you kind of contain that or restrict it? I mean, what is that based in, and how do you prevent it from either growing beyond what is actually accepted by the greater part of humanity, or receding to the point that it has no meaning?
I mean, this is a great point. What I would say, I think the problem is that we are not really participant at this point, neither intellectually nor in terms of civil rights action, nor in terms of political action. So if you're not participant, if you seem like aloof and concerned about your own interests only, not, you know, interests beyond your community, then definitely, you know, nobody will listen to you and you'll have no influence. But remember, I mean, take the United States. I think half of the population, you know, unfortunately, tend to be on the exclusivist side. But there are certain traditions within Western society that has been lost. But I see that there is a push now after people in Europe and the United States have seen how bad is this neoliberal order, this hierarchy, trying to create a hierarchy of the rich, powerful, controlling everything. Not only economics, now politics. Politics is becoming an important element of control. And I think here where we could really contribute, we have to be participant. That's my point. If you are not around the table, neither in those intellectual, you know, deliberations or political deliberations, then you are not considered and your voice has no impact. But definitely if you are around the table and you are caring about things that interest the other parties, not only yours, then people will have to listen to you, because, I mean, we know politics is give and take. An intellectual debate is about listening and engaging, not about just, you know, monologue, but it's about dialogue. So we need to be part of the dialogue on all levels. And unfortunately, in the Arab world and in the Muslim world, this intellectualism is still very, very exclusivist. It's about us, it's about grievances, it's about not being able to look at what's happening, how much the world is changing, how these technologies and how even the neoliberal system is creating a new backlash, that we could really be part of bringing clarity and sharing in defending the rights of ordinary people all over the world and show. I mean, of course, I mean, I'm aware that many of us, many Muslims today, you find them in these international NGOs that are trying to defend human rights. They are even today in Europe and the United States are entering into new areas that we never been there before, which is very encouraging. And that's the purpose. I'm very optimistic. I think Muslims have a lot of important message to share with the world. And this message is universal, I mean, by its very nature. But how we articulate it today is still, sort of feeling, the victims. We are, of course, we are the victims. I'm not denying that. There's victimization of the Muslims, but we cannot really just stay on that channel. We have to move. Yeah, we keep talking about those grievances, but some of us or some of our efforts have to go beyond us. It has to be about other societies. You have South America, you have Africa, you have Asia. There are a lot of things that we can share with people, not necessarily in the position of powers. And we all know that actually the great change in the history of humanity never done by people with a lot of power and money. It was done by impoverished communities, by people who have at least the ethics, the values, and the compassion, human compassion. So I don't know whether that clarifies anything, but I'm trying to just change. We need to change our focus. I feel we are so much obsessed with our issues at the expense of the universal issues, and we cannot really have an impact as long as we continue with this on that trajectory.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Actually, it's very helpful.
Last question. Do you think that governance can coexist with authoritarian governance, or we should get rid of the authoritarian authority in order to implement good governance?
أكيد يعني هذا السؤال
Sure.
يعني ليس وليد اليوم.
This question is
الكواكب
all
في
question that's
كتابه
been
طبائع الاستبداد ومصالح الاستعباد.
it was asked before in books
عن كيفية
where it was mentioned in a book in the last chapter about that one of the conditions or the preconditions of good governance is how can you disfragment the authoritarian structure, especially in our Arab world, Islamic world. Disfragmenting this tyrannic or authoritarian structure has to have its own interests, principles, and as Tariq al-Bishi, the counselor Tariq al-Bishi said, we need to institutionalize this science of how to lose the feeling of not becoming authoritarians, and how to get rid of this culture. And in this regard, these are basic preconditions. But to be able to dismantling it, it's one of the important processes that need to be studied well and to be followed, because we cannot in all conditions there need to be transitional phases, and this is what the Arab revolutions have showed, that we needed to be accurate and to act based on the way they acted. And if they were able to show that there was exception in their actions and in their visions, the respective governments might have been able to present what could be called the counter revolution in this regard. But anyway, with all the differences, they led to having they beat to their head and still control this of this formula and diverted some of these revolutions to other paths. So this is the real problem that expresses or reflects the ideas about this conflict, our crisis. How can envision a change this methodology, and how can this transition be done, and what are the right tools and mechanisms for the right transition? Transition is a science by itself. It's an important science.
Okay. Well, thank you very much to our presenters, and thank you to SIGA for bringing this panel together, and thank you for everybody who attended and asked excellent questions. I am going to... Oh, yes. Oh, wait, no, that's the conference, right? That's the panel right now. There are more panels coming. Panel 8 and 9. You can see here governance and political authority in Muslim world, examining theory and practice. Session number 8, which looks really good, actually. And session number 9, which also looks really good. They both look really good. So
that's true.
yeah, the last one is like a kind of a conversation with these 5 different scholars just talking about the overall topic of the conference. So I think that would be a really good one to watch. Yeah, but I would say both of them are good to watch. Thank you very much, everybody. And I will hopefully be watching more of these panels and hopefully get to see at least these panelists in person, inshallah, in the semi-near future. Okay.
Thank you very much.